Here it is, 50 years of Dungeons & Dragons and 10 years of D&D 5e. Vecna Eve of Ruin, which is the capstone adventure for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. All the questions we have about the Black Obelisks will finally be answered. We'll be able to say... What? They didn't use or mention the obelisks for Eve of Ruin? But... At the end of Fandelver, they explain that there's a connection with Vecna and the obelisks. So, and this is a Vecna adventure. So he's using them to rewrite the universe or something, right? That's the plot. Okay, well, what is this video even going to be about then? This just in, the obelisks have nothing to do with the 5e adventure Vecna Eve of Ruin. Did fans overthink the past adventures, or does Wizards of the Coast not know how to handle their own IP? And now a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by DC20, an evolution in fantasy tabletop RPGs. Create any type of character you want with these iconic and unique abilities to tell the epic stories that you want to tell. DC20 comes from the brain of the Dungeon Coach here on YouTube, and he's been working on this for a while. It features a 4 action point system. You can spend them to do 4 separate actions or utilize them to increase the success of a single action. Melee characters can use an action to react to being attacked and retaliate. Spellcasters can use their reactions to counter magic and have epic magic duels. The Kickstarter is happening now with early backer specials, so check out soon. There's free beta access once you are a backer, and a PDF is included with every hardcover purchase. I was lucky enough to play an early version at Gen Con 2023, and it was a blast. We used a grid with minis, and the 4 action system meant that if I really wanted my attack to hit, I could limit myself to just a single action with a higher chance of success, or I could use those actions to move quickly, dart in, press my luck. So check out DC20 by using the link down below to their Kickstarter, and thanks again, DC20. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and you might know me as the Forgotten Realms lore guy or the obelisk conspiracy theory guy. Let's catch up on what the obelisks are and their involvement in 5e. So in some, not all, Wizards of the Coast official adventures, there were these black magical obelisks of varying size. Some of them enhanced or altered magic in some way. Some hid a demon or celestial inside of them. There was no clear purpose as to what they were intended for. The obelisk conspiracy community thought this was cool. This is a fun way to tie in all of the Forgotten Realms adventures, culminating in the 50th anniversary. There's going to be some epic Avengers Endgame stuff. And when Vecna Eve of Ruin was announced as a level 20 adventure, it kind of sealed the deal for us fans. Vecna is going to undo the universe. The obelisks, the 50th anniversary, this is a big adventure, but, well, it doesn't really seem to be the case now. Now, early on, the biggest revelation came with the adventure Rime of the Frostmaiden in 2020. And afterwards with Fandelver and Fandelver and Below, the Shattered Obelisk in 2023. So Rime of the Frostmaiden explained that the obelisk's true origin, the true purpose, is that they can rewrite history. Now, if the players in Rime of the Frostmaiden manipulated the obelisks in a certain way, they were teleported back in time, back to the year -343 DR, which is before the fall of the Netherese Empire, before Karsus's Folly. Now, next, in Fandelver and Below, we learn that creatures called Spellweavers actually created the obelisks, and Vecna stole and hid that magic. So it sounds like the obelisk's magic was used to create a kind of save point for the multiverse. In the event of a universe-ending calamity, the Spellweavers could go back to a set point in time and fix it. Now, this inspired me to do all kinds of crazy research. Chronomancy from 2nd edition, Vecna as a character, and more. It's all could be tied together. Now, some of us thought the next edition of Dungeons & Dragons would contain 10th or 11th level spells, possibly, because those were forbidden by Mystra, the goddess of magic, after Karsus's folly. That doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, but for this video, let's ask the question first. Who are the Spellweavers? The Spellweavers are 6-armed humanoid-ish creatures of immense arcane power, and they come from an alternate prime material plane. Not much is known and not much is written about what that is exactly. They are alien in appearance and communicate only through telepathy. They have, historically, although I cannot find any adventure evidence of this, historically they are said to organize raids and steal unique magical items, artifacts, and devices. Interesting, they can cast 2 spells at once using their 6-arm and segmented brain. They don't speak, as I said, and they cast magic with their hands only. Now that was from the TSR era, and I don't think we got much more information on them until 4th edition. By 2005, they showed up again in the Monster Manual 3 for 4E, and a Dragon Magazine article. So the Weavers of 4E are an ancient civilization that was destroyed when they fought against an incursion from the Far Realm. The chaos that entered destroyed their homeland and scattered them as a race across the plains. Now they search for objects from their lost civilization that will hopefully let them repair or re-establish their homeworld. We learn that the Spellweavers had a plan to acquire total knowledge of everything. They conducted a grandiose and dangerous experiment to alter reality across the multiverse. Sound familiar? The experiment was met with failure, and the nodes of magic that they had collected or created or generated, they all exploded in a chain reaction, and this was known as the disjunction. It destroyed the Weaver civilization, and some believe it is what created the Astral Sea and the elemental chaos. But wait, there's another story. The Spellweavers were in the world before gods and devils even existed. They knew the universe when it was once a single balanced reality. All planes were one. And this equilibrium was shattered when deities, devils, and beings of great power were introduced, and those beings wanted to carve out areas of the multiverse for themselves. So in this myth, the great spell that destroyed Spellweaver civilization, the disjunction, was most likely a multiverse-spanning spell to draw all of the planes back together into a single equilibrium. The plan failed, and the Spellweavers were destroyed, but their time nodes, which are the magical artifacts or various pyramids, do still exist, but they're difficult, if not impossible, to find. Further, there was an adventure in Dungeon Magazine that stated that Jergal, the Lord of the Dead, is actually an alien god brought to the Forgotten Realms by the Spellweavers who took up residence in Chult. Now, the Spellweavers in Chult taught Netherese wizards necromancy, and those Netherese wizards went back from Chult to Netheril, and they founded the Church of Jergal. So the connection to Chult was right there, Tomb of Annihilation. So knowing the history of the Spellweavers here, or what history there is, Vecna and the Netherese, his plan must be to utilize the obelisks in a ritual that would undo the multiverse, maybe bring everything back to a single point. And at that point, he'll be able to become the one and only god, and he can rebuild it anew, however he wants. Except the obelisks don't come into play anywhere in the adventure. So diving into Vecna Eve of Ruin, this will contain a small amount of spoilers, but I'm not discussing anything super in-depth. Still, if you're going to be a player in Eve of Ruin, you might not want to consume all of this content right now. So 3, 2, 1. The goal of Vecna is to use the ritual of remaking to unravel the multiverse. This ritual is powered by secrets, the energy contained in those secrets, which Vecna is gathering. With Vecna Eve of Ruin, it feels like the opportunity to make an Avengers Endgame event was there. And instead, they made an Ezra Miller The Flash D&D module. Let's pull in Vecna, Tasha, and Mordenkainen, and we'll use them like General Zod, Keaton's Batman, and Christopher Reeves. You were so focused on making sure that we went to all of these different settings and met all of these characters that the story suffered, in my opinion. Okay, but let's take a step back. I should ask myself, what is Eve of Ruin supposed to be? So reading through the module, its intention is to be an anniversary adventure. 50 years of D&D, 10 years of Dungeons & Dragons 5e. You're going to travel to the beloved settings and wondrous planes that are part of Dungeons & Dragons. They'll feature iconic characters to the D&D franchise, and I guess, the adventure is supposed to be a best hits album. You name drop some NPCs, you put on a loose quest that forces you to different settings within Dungeons & Dragons. Forgotten Realms, Spelljammer, Eberron, Ravenloft, Dragonlance, Greyhawk, and finally Planescape. And it does that. Yeah? If that was their goal, I think a book of 7 one-shots, each in a different setting, with a loose framework of how to interconnect them might have worked better. And my opinions aside, that was the intention. Showcase all of our settings and have recognizable NPCs in a big level 20 adventure. Okay, you did that. But Vecna, the god of secrets, obtained Spellweaver obelisks long ago and deciphered their magical process. After learning this, he undid all the Spellweaver obelisks and probably the Spellweavers themselves. But then the magic was rediscovered by the Netherese just randomly, and they were the ones that created the obelisks in Faerun. So every obelisk you find is not a Spellweaver artifact, it's a Netherese artifact. And it didn't work as intended because the Netheril Empire fell. But all of that doesn't really matter because Vecna doesn't need the Netherese obelisks to perform the ritual. And nothing's connected. But it seemed pretty important in Phandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisks, but not in Eve of Ruin. I even went through the adventure on D&D Beyond, and I did a Control F on every page looking for the word obelisk, and it's not there. On a whole, I think Vecna Eve of Ruin needs work to run. There is a lot of fun stuff in this book, and ultimately, I like the idea of Vecna undoing the multiverse. But it really feels to me like you could lean into the world undoing itself more. Maybe you have to jump into Eberron because the Forgotten Realms is gone. And I want to say that I have no ill will or anything to any of the writers or the designers. Adventures like this always have a lot of input from lots of different sources. And I'm sure even some of the writers were saying, hey, I want to take it in this direction. And people upstairs said, no, that doesn't really align with our brand. Case in point, if you didn't know, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus was changed wholesale just to cram Baldur's Gate in there because of the announcement of Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know, from my perspective, this Avengers Endgame big 50th anniversary adventure, it fell flat. It didn't tie in with the other 5e published adventures like I thought it would. But there was no promise from Wizards of the Coast that they would do this. And so am I the dum-dum for expecting too much out of 5e? Yeah, I am. But what do you think? Did I get my hopes up? Am I wrong? Were you hoping that there was more to the obelisks? Thank you again, DC20, for sponsoring this video. Be sure to click the link in the description to be taken to his Kickstarter. It's a super fun game, and you should definitely check it out. Subscribe to this channel to make sure that you catch my next video. Surprisingly, I do think that I would run this adventure, but with some heavy modifications. So next week, I'm going to give you guys the changes that I think would make Vecna Eve of Ruin better. Now, I've got a second channel where I talk about non-Dungeons & Dragons RPGs, and I just started a small little podcast that I'm going to be doing hopefully weekly on tabletop news. So subscribe to Jordan's Dracula Junction, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.